buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Okay, friends, welcome to this Sunday afternoon broadcast. And so in today's kind of talk at the beginning, I wanted to go over a very important aspect or the process of meditation, especially those who are practicing, cultivating insight and vipassana meditation, especially those who are following the process of what is called vipassana pubbangama samadhi, which means developing mindfulness and vipassana, using that as a means to gain samadhi and concentration, and from there to realize the Four Noble Truths and the paths and the fruits. So, the 7 factors of enlightenment, they belong or are part of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and the 4th foundation of mindfulness being the contemplation of Dhamma. Now it's called Dhammanupassana, and a lot of times it's called contemplation of the mental formations, but really I prefer just to leave the word as Dhamma, because if you look at those categories that belong to Dhammanupassana, it is the 5 hindrances, the 5 aggregates, the 6-fold sense sphere, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and the 4 noble truths. How much more Dhamma you want, It's all Dhamma. So, and it's contemplating the Dhamma, seeing the Dhamma. So I prefer to, call it contemplation of Dhamma, use that instead of just contemplation of the mental formations. But anyway, so, and the 4 foundations of mindfulness, are found as the 7th factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. So you have the 4 foundations of mindfulness occupying the 7th step of the Eightfold Path. And you have the Dhammanupassana found in the 4th foundation of mindfulness. And you have the factors of enlightenment as the 6th or the 5th step of the 5th factor of out of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Or maybe it's the 6th, anyway, this 6th factor. Okay, so you can see that the factors of enlightenment kind of are quite way up there in terms of the way of development. And also that's for a reason. There are, let's say, the 7 factors of enlightenment are mindfulness, investigation, energy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. Hope I didn't leave one out. Oh, no, joy, I forgot. the joy. Can't forget the joy. That's very important. So now people can practice these mental qualities, at a certain point, but they're just those, they're not considered factors of enlightenment until one has attained the stage of the stream entry. Technically speaking, in terms of how the texts kind of explain that. But anyway, I don't want to make it too complicated. So, mindfulness, is the most important of all the mental factors. In fact, one time there was a young monk and, he was trying to memorize all these lists of all these, 37 factors of enlightenment and the Eightfold Path. And, he came to the Buddha and said, I can't memorize all these things. I can't remember all these things. And he said, you remember one thing. Can you remember one thing? And he said, well, yeah, I should be able to remember one thing. He said, mindfulness, be mindful. So if you can't remember anything else, he said, be mindful. Because when you're mindful, almost everything else will come into place. So anyway, we've talked so much about mindfulness already, and also the practice of meditation. So, I'm just kind of just reviewing this as a process of meditation. Because it's a process of meditation. You could call it a meditation method. It's a meditation method. Just as a samatha practice, if you take a specific object of meditation and you concentrate on, let's say, the anapanasati, and there's a certain method of developing that. So there's a specific sequence in developing this process of insight leading to, enlightenment, or to realize the Four Noble Truths. So mindfulness is basically the alertness, but a specific type of alertness. Alertness that's focused in the body, and alertness is it's attentive to the feelings and sensations arising in the body, and then the alertness that to the various types of thoughts or hindrances and thoughts that may be arising in the mind. And also in contemplating their impermanence, or seeing their impermanence. But basically it's that the mindfulness, the four foundations of mindfulness is what the Buddha calls right mindfulness. Now people talk about mindfulness all the time, in a casual way, and so on, and they're practicing mindfulness, but that's what I would consider a low level of mindfulness. But anyway, people have to start there. And basically, as we said, mindfulness is to remember. But remember the present moment. But the present moment consists of form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. So you can't help but being aware of one of the aggregates at any time, because everything in the universe will fall into, except for Nibbana, will fall into those five aggregates. Anyway, so, but to keep it simple, mindfulness is the alertness centered in the body, and then the mind. And then as you're observing the various phenomena, body-mind phenomena, you investigate them. And this involves, the Chintamaya Panya, and the investigating the Dhamma in terms of, how it arose. You hear a sound and you just take it for granted. I'm hearing. How did hearing arise? Does anybody know? Huh? So you investigate. You say, I heard it. That's ordinary worldly knowledge. But from the Dhamma point of view, we're talking about Dhamma. So because of contact and attention, we hear things, and we hear them with conditioning. So anyway, you investigate, basically it's the 5 aggregates that you investigate and the six senses. But anyway, you see, how everything just arises, lasts a few seconds and passes away. And it's, as I said many times, it's like a scientific investigation. So, the scientist goes in the laboratory and sits down. So this body is our laboratory. We sit down in our meditation posture. We focus the attention on the breathing, or the sitting body and the breathing. That's like looking down through the microscope and to observe the sitting or breathing body, or one or the other, in particular, what is the focus of your meditation. And then the longer you hold the attention there, it's like turning up the power of the microscope. And then you can see like a sensation. Oh, there's a painful sensation. And the mind, has aversion to it. And you can say, well, what is this painful sensation? Well, it's just, atoms and molecules rubbing together, producing friction and sensation. So what? Or who's feeling the pain? So anyway, you use the Dhamma. You have to use the Dhamma as your basis of investigation, not just your own ideas, but using the Dhamma as a framework of investigating things as being anicca, dukkha, and anatta, and of the 5 aggregates. So as you're investigating and seeing how things happen, you get energy, because it becomes interesting to see all the various things that are happening and the sensations that are happening on the body. You can watch an itch maybe on the left side of your face, and you feel a stinging, biting sensation on your right arm, and then you feel some other pressure, uncomfortable feeling on your buttocks, and there's a lot of interesting. We always say, "Oh, I don't like that," or we react, but you have to change your attitude and say, "Wow," and take it up as interesting. Why is that sensation bothering? Because of the ego, the self. Relax around it, and see how they're changing, and how your whole world of experience is just made up of these various sensations and thoughts. So anyway, it gives you energy. Just like a scientist will, if he thinks he's making progress in his experiment, he will get kind of a lot of energy, and you forget about eating his supper or doing other things, and he might be able to stay up the whole night because he's interested in this experiment. So that is the kind of energy and also joy that arises with the investigation. But you have to know how to investigate, and that's why it's very useful to have a good background of Dhamma understanding. So the mindfulness is the alertness. It's able to observe things coming and going. Then you investigate them, seeing them, and you get interested in that investigation. And because you're gaining concentration at the same time, this is part of vitakka and vichara. That means applied and sustained thought. So the investigation uses some type of discursive thought, but it's applied and sustained thought. It's not scatterbrained thought as our normal mind is, getting distracted and so on, or caught in negativity, but it's thought on Dhamma. So you get that's a concentrated state. And that also helps to lead to that joy, that because the hindrances are getting less as you're doing that as well. And so that joy makes the whole body and mind also tranquil. It's called tranquility, body and mind tranquility. And then the mind becomes concentrated. That means by that time, that tranquility and all that, the joy, and you'll be experiencing also piti and sukha, you'll be picking up the jhana factors on the way, and then you attain concentration at that point, which is called vipassana jhana. That means you've used the vipassana to attain the jhana. And the mindfulness becomes very, very tranquil and calm, and you're able to see how quickly things arise and vanish very, very clearly. So, and the longer you hold that, the deeper it becomes, and then you attain the successive levels of jhanic concentration. Where even the vitaka and vichara goes away, and you're just seeing the pure arising and vanishing of things arising and vanishing. You still have the piti and the sukha, and the mind is focused there in the present moment. The present moment is the one-pointedness. That means all the psychophysical energies have become focused in the present moment. And the mind isn't moving. Objects are coming and going through this space of awareness. That's a misunderstanding that a lot of people have. They think, oh, to watch things coming and going, that's a lot of extra activity. No, that's if you don't have concentration. Then it gets maybe distracting if you're letting these things that are coming and going bother you. But by the time you follow this method and you've got the concentration, then those things are no longer disturbing you, because the 5 hindrances also have been overcome at that point. And the insight naturally arises through that. As you develop that perception of impermanence, you go through the insight knowledges of rise and fall, then just the dissolution, and we've gone over those before, seeing the suffering inherent in clinging and grasping at any of the objects that come through. Very clearly you can see the mind starts to cling to something, that agitation immediately comes up. And the mind gets more and more of a detachment to the things that are coming and going. And then that's when the enlightenment factors are very strong at that point. So, it starts out by practicing ordinary mindfulness, but gradually as you're going through mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, you're picking up concentration, you're gaining skill in overcoming the hindrances. And then they become, and especially when you attain the state of the sotapanna, then the right view is established and doubts have been overcome. And then those enlightenment factors really become factors of enlightenment. Before that, there was a lot of struggle to get up to that point. But once one attains that first glimpse of, nibbana, and has overcome doubts and the personality belief, then because of that, they don't get in the way. And then those factors of mindfulness and investigation become much more powerful. Anyway, they lead up to that that state of concentration, and then, if you staying in that state contemplating, people think you can't contemplate vipassana in the jhana. That's wrong. It's a jhana that helps you contemplate. the clearness of the mind that comes in the jhana. Sure, if you're absorbed in a kasina and your mind is the totally red space or something like that, that's a different story. But we're not talking about that kind of concentration. We're talking about the anapanasati concentration, as explained in the anapanasati sutta, where you're contemplating impermanence, you're contemplating fading away, and you're contemplating cessation right up to the point of enlightenment. There's still the breathing. So anyway, so then the equanimity comes through that by attaining getting the third and fourth level of jhanic awareness. I prefer not to call them jhanas because people who are clinging to this term and have their own perceptions about it get, they can get them off track, So I prefer to call it the jhanic level concentration rather than saying you're in a jhana, because people might get confused with that. And then at that point, after that, the equanimity, the mind is not going out to any phenomenon. And because the sense of self depends on the past and the future, and the sense of ego remains only because we're identifying with the various objects coming and going in terms of past or future. But that's all let go of in this very deep level of insight. The mind is no longer, the mind is in the present moment and is no longer attracted to any of these conditioned phenomena. And so the sense of self fades away. And so that equanimity actually is the very purified form of purified condition of the mind. So that is, that whole process, of course, can occur in, let's say, one meditation session, and if you practice mindfulness and so on and have a certain degree of right understanding, then it's, and the hindrances are not too strong, then you can see those stages quite clearly. So you can gain a lot of that understanding through your study too, but it's a combination of, because that Chintamaya Panya, and the intellectual wisdom and the study of the Dhamma helps to being able to contemplate according to the Dhamma. And then the last of the, in the Dhammanupassana of the Satipatthana Sutta, after the 7 factors of enlightenment have been developed, then you contemplate the Four Noble Truths. It's not that you contemplate the Four Noble Truths, you realize the Four Noble Truths. And you see clearly, this is suffering. That means you see any attachment in the mind and the ego, you see that as the deepest level of suffering. And you see the cause of suffering is ignorance, not understanding what the mind is and how it operates, plus all of the clinging and cravings and it's accumulated. And you also see the end of suffering, because by that point that you've built up to equanimity, then you see how the suffering has ceased to a great extent, even while doing that. And then also you see the path very clearly. So that's the Dhamma, that's Dhammanupassana. But it's not just thinking about the Dhamma, it's observing it and using that observation for realizing these insights, but following this kind of step-by-step method. So, having said that, again, I just wanted to remind you of this and review it, because a lot of times, people get into a state of meditation, and there might be the mind is kind of calm, but they might get spaced out, and then they might be thinking, well, what do I do now? I'm watching the breath, and so you have to be clear in the mind what are the stages, and you have to keep on trying to understand and each of those levels, and then go on. It's a gradual unfolding anyway. But how long one would have to practice each one of those, of course, that is going to be different for each person. So, having said that much, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you might have about that. So it looks like there's two things on the chat. Let's see here. When sitting, an itch or pain arises in the body, where is the contact with the six senses? I mean, one hasn't seen, touched, heard, tasted, or smelled anything. You haven't touched anything? Well, what is an itch? An itch is the inner, is something even under the skin or on the skin that's causing an itch. We can't see it because could be microscopic. It could be one of these microscopic microbes that's living on your skin, which any doctor or scientist would tell you, yeah, there's thousands of microbes crawling all over your skin, the surface of the body, and within the body there's worms and all kind of things that are eating you and stuff. That's what a lot of these things might be that. Or if you got poison ivy or something, an itch, that's a tactile sensation, that's a touch. So that is the contact. It's the contact of the skin, anything on the surface of the skin or within the body. That is the tactile, it's coming through the body sense. So that's how you should try to understand that, the sense of touch. And then because of that, then you have the thought about the itch, then you contact the mind through the mind door, and thinking or getting distracted by, disturbed by the itch, unpleasant feeling and so on. And sometimes you can notice distractions coming through two or three senses at the same time. You could feel some itches on the body and hear loud sounds out around you, and seeing things, so many contacts arising, nearly at the same time, within milliseconds, nanoseconds of each other. So it seems like, you can feel and hear and maybe even smell and see things going on almost at the same time, so many contacts. In fact, the Buddha had a nice little analogy about the contact and the feeling. It's like if a cow was stripped of all of its skin, and a cow was standing there in the field without any skin covering it, and all these flies and other stuff were landing directly on the flesh under the skin. You could imagine how painful probably that would be. So, because we get disturbed when they're on the surface of the skin, which acts as a protection, right? But when the skin is stretched away and all those contacts directly on the nerves, you can imagine, the pain. So this is the next question. If you would please explain, clarify the relationship between the following list of items: 10 unwholesome actions, the 10 defilements, 7 underlying tendencies. You want me to write a book? That's a lot of questions. Are they derived from one another? And do to support each other and so on. Anyway, that would take a lot of explanation. Would take all of our time up. But anyway, a lot of them, of course, are related and interrelated. So the 10 unwholesome actions, I'm not sure what you mean by the 10 defilements, because sometimes translators use different terms when they're translating. But the 10 unwholesome actions are basically the 10 unskillful karmas of body, speech, and mind, in which the precepts, are aimed at trying to reduce those unwholesome actions. And they're all coming from the defilements. I don't know what the 10 defilements actually is referring to there. The 7 underlying tendencies, the tendency for greed, the tendency for aversion, the tendencies to do various things. Of course, we know what the 5 hindrances are, the 10 fetters. They all come from the same source. Basically, all of those things, whatever they are, they came from greed, hatred, and delusion. So try not to make all these things too difficult. Everything comes from greed, hatred, and delusion. All the 10 defilements come from greed, hatred, and delusion. The 7 underlying tendencies come from greed, hatred, and delusion. The 5 hindrances come from greed, hatred, and delusions. The 10 fetters come from greed, hatred, and delusion. And the 4 taints come from greed, hatred, and delusion. And ignorance and desire are the source of greed, hatred, and delusion. Of course, ignorance and delusion are basically the same thing. The 10 kleshas, again, the kleshas, whether there's 10 or 15, there's probably thousands of them. But, there's certain categories you can't, they're all derivatives of each other, So there's so many derivatives of hatred, let's say. There's, of course, anger, there's irritation, there's resentment, there's ill will. All these are, coming from hatred. And then there's greed, there's desire, attachment, lust. There's so many spin-offs of each of those, greed, hatred, and delusions. So that's the way you should try to see that. I'd have to see the list because, again, the kleshas and the defilements and unwholesome roots, they're all basically, the same thing. This is question: in the 7 factors of enlightenment, can the experience be is it interactive? One experience tranquility without joy first, or experiencing energy, then investigation? Well, a person can have energy to run around a block. That's not investigation. That's not the energy that comes from investigation of Dhamma. So we're talking about the factors of enlightenment, not just ordinary factors of, that you might do doing other things. And tranquility, if it's real tranquility, you could be tranquil kind of, but in a non-aware state. You could be in a kind of a torpor, which is somebody might think is tranquil, but that's not tranquility of the jhana. That's not tranquility of the meditation state. You see, that's why sometimes people get these things confused. All these things, the terms used in Dhamma don't necessarily equate with the same type of translations that you find in other languages, like in English language or so on. So tranquility is different use it in the Dhamma language in terms of like shamatha. You know, if you could ask somebody out in front of Walmart, are you tranquil? Oh yeah, I'm tranquil. I drink a few whiskeys, I'm very tranquil. Oh, yeah. Well, that's not tranquility. So, you have to be aware of how people are using these terms. So, anyway, but normally the tranquility arises and the joy arises because the mind is tranquil. Because it's free from the hindrances. And so all these things are tied together. But you have to understand the context and the process involved to see how each of these is a kind of a foundation for the next one, Because without investigation, you probably won't get the energy. The energy doesn't necessarily come in just practicing the jhana. Energy is not mentioned as one of the factors of the jhana, for instance. But it is in the development of the factors of enlightenment. And, you get some energy by investigation, and then that investigation gives you more energy. And then that energy is applied back to the investigation, and that even gets you more energy, because the more you start discovering and observing things, the more kind of excited you become. Not excited in a negative way, but this kind of a zeal and this energy to probe deeper. Okay, so anybody writing any last questions that they might have? Sorry if I didn't answer everyone's questions, the way they might have expected them to be answered or so. But again, it's not easy to answer very clearly sometimes a lot of these questions, because just the way that the experience that you have in meditation is not easy to put into regular, ordinary language sometimes. Okay, so if there's no more questions, we can have a short break to use the restroom or take a drink of water. And if anybody can think of a question they want to write down before we start our little exercises before meditation, then we perhaps have time to look at another question now. Okay, so let's take a short break, come back in a few minutes. Okay, friends, come back now, and there might be there's one more question, so I'll try to answer that now. So when you're practicing Vipassana meditation, are you actually investigating any phenomena that occurs internally? And after that investigation, joy and tranquility should arise? Is that so? It's very similar to normal jhana practice. Well, it may be similar to normal jhana practice because it is jhana practice. As you see, the 6 stages attaining the jhanas. So it is a jhana practice. And in the traditional explanation of, strict jhana practice, let's say, you're using the jhana factors to contemplate their impermanence, as you see that those vitaka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekagata, they've been produced and they're impermanent, and then you let go of them, you reach another jhana and you see how that one also, and they're impermanent. So you are kind of practicing that, but it's limited just to that state, whereas in Vipassana, you have a larger field, and it's about the whole world of body-mind experience, whereas when you're practicing just a very narrow jhana thing, investigating one thing like the breathing or something else, then that doesn't help you a lot in the larger world, because in our waking state, in the larger world, all of our senses are on, and so that's why the practice of Vipassana is more practical for people, because you can practice it in the daily life, because everything is always coming at us all the time. And so to develop that ability. Anyway, yeah, and basically you're investigating not every single thing. There's thousands of things coming through our nervous system all the time, so it's impossible to investigate them, but you generally understand. Now, if a particular sensation grabs you, like a pain, then you might then focus on that for a little bit, a few moments to investigate it in order to let go of it. Or if there's a thought or an emotion, anything that the mind is starting to get stuck on, you investigate it so you're able to unstick and go back into the flow from moment to moment. But when things are just arising and vanishing, and the mind is not sticking to any of them, you're not, that investigation is, you've already done that footwork in the beginning. And now it's like knowing. The knowing is there. And that is a kind of the subtle investigation, when that more active investigation. First, it's an active investigation where you might actually be talking to yourself and this and this, but then it starts to get more refined, and it becomes kind of a background understanding that all these things that are coming and going are anicca, dukkha, and anatta. And especially, the anatta, you see the sense of self fade away. So you're not really talking yourself through that anymore. It's just this knowing that that's the way it is, and the mind keeps pulling back from it more and more until, as I said, the sense of self fades away. So, yeah, just to reiterate, in both strict traditional jhana practice, where you're using the Jhana factors for developing insight. Okay, that's one thing, but in Vipassana, you're using all six senses and the five aggregates in the flow of impermanence to develop the insight, and so it's more comprehensive. And okay, friends. So let's now we'll do a few stretches and then have our meditation practice. Okay. Okay, just stand straight. Relax your shoulders. Feel the arms and hands hanging at your sides. Just gently close the eyes. And feel the bottoms of your feet pressing the floor. Kind of just imagine the height and weight of the body over the feet. And when you're feeling that weight of the body over the feet, you know, if you're investigating, you'd say, well, that is, you know, the earth vibration. And feet is a perception. What I'm, you know, actually coming through the senses is a feeling of a hardness of pressure that memory then calls my feet pressing the floor. So that's the way you would investigate, using that kind of a mental analogy, the way we learn it in the Dhamma. But later on, when you know that that's what it is, you don't have to use those words anymore. You just know that, you know, that's just the vibration of hardness, you know. Anyway, begin some deep, slow breathing. Hold the air in the lungs a few seconds to feel the pause, to allow the oxygen to get into the blood, and feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. Just breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. On the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, arch your lower spine a little bit, stretch upward. On the out breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of the head. Again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, head back. Out breath, touch the head. Once more, third time, hold that upward stretch longer. Arch the lower back. Feel the sensation. And release the fingers. The out breath, arms back to the side. Just relax. Mentally feel the outline of the body. Just feel the sensations in your hands and fingers. See if you can feel the sensations of your feet pressing the floor and the sensations of your fingers and hands kind of simultaneously. On the next in-breath, push up on the toes and raise the arms over the head in this way and stretch up. Out breath, come back down, arms to the side, heels to the floor. Use the breath to help lift and lower the body. In. Out. Relax, close the eyes. Sort of feel the outline of the standing body, all the subtle vibrations. Pulsation. Prickly or itching sensation. You practice meditation at the same time as you're practicing the stretches. Just letting go of extraneous thoughts. Keep the attention in the body. You now spread your legs apart and the feet apart about 3 feet or more. And place the hands together at the chest. On the in-breath, raise the hands over the head. On an out-breath, lower the hands to the chest and bend both knees and lower the body down. Try to keep the torso upright. Come down as far as you comfortably can. Feel the stretch in the hips and knees. In-breath, push back up, hands over the head. Out-breath, lower down. In. Out. In. The out breath, arms back to the sides. Just keep feeling the body. Just feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel the hands hanging at the side. Feel the head balanced on top. Feel the clothing touching the skin on different places. Next, we're going to do side bending, keeping the hands at the sides. Breathe in. On an out breath, just bend over your right side, letting the right hand kind of slide down by or below the knee. In breath, lift up. And the out breath, the other side. In breath up. Again to the right, out breath. In to the left, out breath. In once more to each side. In the out breath, relax, close the eyes, feel the whole body, all the various sensations. All the bodily sensations belong to the material aggregate. Or if there's any unpleasant or painful or pleasant sensations that belong to the feelings aggregate. Any thoughts about it, the mental formations aggregate. When you know how to investigate, you keep the mind occupied on Dhamma and not letting it escape into, extraneous or unnecessary thoughts, of the past or future. And now we'll do twisting from side to side, holding the arms out. And breathe in. And look at your right hand on the out breath, twist around, keep the eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, come back to the front. Let your feet turn with the body to help keep a better balance. Out breath to the left. In breath back to the front. Again to the right, out breath. In breath. In once more to each side, out breath. In breath. Out. Out breath. Lower the arms. Relax. Feel the sensations in the shoulders. Bring your legs and feet closer together. We're going to do one more exercise, the backward and forward bending. So you have to be careful with these back bends. When you lift up from a back bend position, it could be a rush of energy coming up to maybe make the body, inner body shake or tremble a bit, or even like feeling like you're going to black out. So we don't want that to happen. So just don't bend back too far the first time, especially. But so hold the hands so they're out, they're facing outward, and on an in-breath, make a gradual V with the arms as you bend backwards, spreading the arms out to the sides, looking up at the ceiling. And carefully lift back up, keeping the arms out at the sides. And on an out breath, lower the arms down to try to touch the floor by your feet. Try to keep the legs straight. And begin standing up, turn the palms outward. Again, make the gradual V with the arms as you bend back. In breath, carefully lift up, be aware of any shaking. Out breath, arms, hands to the floor. Begin standing up, turn the palms outward, again, in breath, arms out to the side. Carefully lift up, in out breath, hands to the floor. Hold that downward stretch a little longer. And let the small bones in the lower lumbar, the coccyx kind of stretch out. The sacrum bones. Okay, begin standing up. Then bring the hands to finish, bring the hands to the chest. In the out breath, arms back to the sides. Feel the whole body. Just try to feel or imagine that the whole body has been bathed and washed with healing life force vibrations due to the breathing and exercise. Bathing all the cells and tissues with oxygenated blood and prana energy. Just try to feel how that just lets the mind rest in the center, the present moment connected with the body. Okay, so now we'll prepare for the sitting meditation. So after doing some yoga exercises, it's good to take a little drink of water if you have some water nearby. Okay, so again, I'm going to turn off my video for the guided meditation. So try to sit straight, keeping the back and the head in a straight line. Get yourself comfortable on the seat. Place your hands either one on top of the other in the lap, or each hand resting on the legs or knees. But once you place the hands in a position, try not to move them during the whole meditation. Then gently close the eyes and just let your attention naturally fall down to feel the buttocks and the feet pressing the floor. Just feel or imagine the weight of the body is pressing the buttocks, the knees, or the feet on the floor or the seat. And those vibrations that you feel, the earth vibration, the material aggregate, the body sensation. Being able to notice few different sensations. Your right buttock, left buttock, your right foot, left foot. That would be developing mindfulness, the ability to notice things. And then moving the attention up to feel your hands and fingers. Start to notice some different sensations in your hands or fingers. Notice the outline of your thumbs or fingers. So actually you're practicing concentration and mindfulness at the same time. Concentration is keeping the attention on that limited area. The mindfulness is the ability to notice different sensations within that area. Or to remember that you're sitting. The sensations in the hand are also the material aggregate. Basically, they're just cells vibrating, producing sensation. And feel the shoulders, relax the shoulders, feel the weight of the upper arms hanging from the shoulders. Also feel where the clothing touches the skin of the shoulders or arms. Just the material vibration, tactile sensations, sense of touch. But the idea of your body parts, those are perception. The aggregate of perceptions or memory. And feel your head balanced on top of the neck. Try to keep your chin level, parallel with the floor. Just mentally feel the whole head and face. Feel some different sensations on your face. Feel where your lips touch together. Where the upper lip touches the lower lip. And feel the outer nose. Subtle prickling sensations on the nose. And take a few deep, slow breaths. Feel the air moving through the nostrils. If you breathe deep enough, you might even hear the sound of the air going through. So you have different sense perceptions at the same time. Touch of the air in the nostrils. Maybe a sound. Perception that you're breathing. Now discontinue the deep breathing. Now feel your eyes resting in the socket. You might notice some light or color behind the eyes. You might notice some subtle eye movement. Just consciously relax the eyes. Just be aware of the sensations you notice. Now from that point behind the eyes, just try to feel the outline of the sitting body. Just get a sense of some sensation from your buttocks or feet. your hands, with the breathing, and the head on top. Just mentally remember sitting, sitting, sitting. It's the mindfulness, it's remembering the present moment. And again, take a few deep, slow breaths to feel the more dynamic breathing. And hold the air in the lungs a few seconds to feel that pause. And feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath. Just breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Now we're going to count the breaths from 1 to 10 to develop a better concentration. Let's keep the attention focused in the middle of the body on the expanding and contracting sensations. Try to continue to take slightly deeper breaths. And on the next expanding in breath, mentally count 1. Holding the breath, feel the pause. And on the contracting out breath, also count to 1. And next expanding in breath, 2. Contracting out breath, 2. Next expanding in breath, 3. The out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath 6. In breath 7. Out breath 7. In breath 8. Out breath 8. In breath 9. Out breath 9. In breath 10. Out breath 10. Now discontinue the counting, discontinue any deep breathing, letting the breathing return to its own lesser, shorter rhythm, but continue to feel it. Just keep the attention focused there on the center of the body, feel the subtler expanding and contracting sensation. Using that as your anchor to the present moment. Just feel those tactile sensations of touch sensations of the clothing rubbing against the skin of the abdomen, stomach, rib cage, or chest. That expands or contracts. Notice the brief little pause and then the contracting out breath. So like a scientist sitting in the laboratory or sitting in this laboratory of the body, looking down to the microscope of attention. Try to notice all the different little sensations of expanding in-breath and the pause, the sensations of the contracting out-breath and the brief pause. Keeping your attention on the breathing is the concentration. With the awakeness to feel the different sensations within that breathing is the mindfulness, the alertness. Knowing when you're breathing in is the mindfulness. Knowing that you're sitting is the mindfulness. Knowing when you're breathing out is the mindfulness. And just continually remembering, breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting. That's your applied and sustained attention. But if it was only that, you would get bored. But to notice all the different little sensations within that breathing is the interesting part. See how quickly the sensations change, just come and go. Even within one in-breath, you can notice 3 or 4, 5 different sensations. Even while you're focusing on the breathing, you can investigate. This body lives on breathing, breathing in oxygen, blood taking it out to feed the cells of the body. The seemingly so-called physical heavy body is just billions of cells interacting, producing 4 vibrations of hardness, fluidity, temperature, motion, the 4 elements. And actually cells are just made up of millions of molecules and atoms. Atoms are just made up of electrons, which is just energy. So in reality, this body is just condensed energy that appears to be solid. It's part of investigation of the body. This body came to be because of the accumulation of the karma from the past. The karma of the parents wanting a child. Just breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Just contemplating the body in the body. The breathing body within the larger 4 element physical body. Just descending into the voidness of just the body. Letting the attention to the external world disappear. Just breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. With each out breath, just allowing the body and mind to relax more and more into the present moment. But at the same time, being alert for thoughts coming up into the mind. That's the mindfulness. Let go of the thoughts. Maintain that connection to the breathing body. That's the concentration. Vitaka and vichara applied and sustained thought. Sitting and breathing, sitting and breathing, sitting and breathing. The mindfulness is feeling all the different changing sensations within that breathing body. Or any sounds that might be heard outside. Of course, any thoughts arising in the mind, any hindrances. It's where you have to have mindfulness. Alertness. If any hindrances arise, you have to investigate those hindrances, knowing how does this hindrance arise, how does it go away. Or applying the appropriate antidotes, the right effort. But if there's no hindrances, just stay with the breathing body, just going deeper and deeper to feel subtler and subtler sensations, vibrations, deep within the body, mind, nervous system. Investigate this body as being just the 5 aggregate material vibrations, pleasant, painful, neutral sensations, perceptions, thoughts, emotions, and consciousness, the ego consciousness. Knowing how they interact. With a clinging or attachment that arises to painful or pleasant sensation or thought. So whatever actively takes your attention, you investigate it so the mind can let go of it. And again, enter the flow of breathing body awareness. This opening up to the flow of impermanence, and all these aggregates are always constantly changing, arising, and vanishing. And the sixth sense impingement. If you're getting any insights from the investigation, you might notice that subtle joy or happiness in the mind, joy of making some progress, seeing something deeper. And as random errant thoughts get weaker and slower, as more clarity and light comes into the awareness. This is the hallmark of tranquility. Mind settling more into the present moment, letting go of the past and future, overcoming drowsiness. The mind gaining concentration, that means resting in the present moment. With the applied and sustained thought focused in this breathing body, feeling the subtle vibrations of the piti, subtle inner happiness. Just absent from agitation. The concentrated mind. And the body-mind equilibrium. Just try to feel the body and mind as being like an empty house with nobody home to answer the call, knocking on the doors or windows. But there's a sensitive microphone or seeing eye camera that knows but can't do anything. It knows the inner wisdom of impermanence and no self. The little feeling of me just fades further and further away to the distant background. With just moments of sensory vibrations rising and vanishing, coming and going through the space of awareness, the empty space of awareness. So what perception or thoughts arise in the mind based on that sound vibration? Sabbi sankhara anicchati. Sabbi sankhara dukkati. Sabbi dhamma anattati. Yada panyaya pasati. Atanibindati dukhi. Esamaggo visuddhiya. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to pass away and vanish. And all impermanent things, if clung to with ignorance, bring stress and suffering. And all the Dhammas, the conditioned Dhammas, as well as the unconditioned Nibbana element, are without any owner or controller. They're not self. When one sees these three characteristics with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Okay, now let's spend the last few minutes of the meditation cultivating and sending out thought vibrations of metta, friendliness and best wishes toward our own body and mind and toward the body and minds of all other beings. We'll combine that with the breathing. So take some more deep, slow breaths, and after breathing in, hold the air in the lungs several seconds to feel or imagine that oxygenated blood going out to all the cells of the body, tranquilizing them, making them happy with life force. And on the out breath, feel that pleasant or relaxation of the out breath. And take several deep, slow breaths like that. Just imagine charging up your system with pure energy, pure friendliness, pure wisdom. Just with the ideas that may I be well, peaceful, and wise. May I be free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I be able to continue to develop my understanding of the Dhamma, to develop the factors of enlightenment, the practice of meditation, to free the mind from confusion and suffering. May I be well, peaceful, and wise. And try to continue taking some more deep, slow breaths, and with each out breath, just imagine sending these thought vibrations out back home to your family members, relatives, people you live with, colleagues at work, other friends. So the idea, imagine these vibrations permeating the body and mind, driving away their fears, worries, anxieties, greed and hatred, establishing their minds in present moment awareness. And with each out breath, just imagine sending these waves of metta vibrations further and further afield, going over the hills and the valleys, through the cities and towns, eventually across the whole country, in all the 10 directions, across the oceans, to envelop the whole earth with this caressing vibrations, tranquilizing vibrations of metta, being pure love, pure wisdom, pure energy, just driving out their fevers of greed, hatred, and delusion, their anxieties, fears, worries. Just with the thought that may all living beings, wherever they might be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, and all the negative actions and thoughts that come from that. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings be able to hear the teachings of the Dhamma, and to learn and practice meditation to help free their minds from confusion and suffering. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. Just like a mantra reverberating throughout space. Well, peaceful, and wise. Now to finish the meditation, I invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. Take a deep breath and then chanting the word sadhu, long out breath, feeling those vibrations. Now mindfully place your hands at the edge of the knees. Take one more deep, slow breath. And stretch the head back, putting your hands against the knees to arch the lower spine. Hold it a few moments. And lift the head up on an in-breath. And relax on the out-breath. At the end of the out-breath, just put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So I hope you had a peaceful, or at least a insightful meditation. I'm glad all of you could come and join us today. And remember that next Saturday, I'm going to be doing what they call a homestay retreat. We call it a homestay day of mindfulness. Sponsored by the Pittsburgh Buddhist Vihara, but it's open to anybody who wants to join. And I sent out the link to that and also the hourly schedule in last week's program. And I'll try to include that again with my next mailing, hopefully by tomorrow, about the Wednesday night Sutta class. But I will include the link to that Saturday DOM on Zoom, and the link to that. So if you care to join in, you're welcome to do that. So
thank you, Bhante.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and have a good mindful week. Try to keep cultivating factors of enlightenment, whether